Yes, good day, everyone. Welcome to another License Q session. Today, we're going to discuss all about the Microsoft EA renewal. We're going to do a deep dive, explaining more about the enterprise agreement renewal process and all the things you will encounter when you are negotiating with Microsoft. So, exciting session coming up. Let's start off with the presentation.
All right, everyone, here we are. Thanks for welcoming everyone, Eric. We'll be talking about the Microsoft EA renewal today. This is obviously our main focus, our main bread and butter, and we decided that it was a good idea to share some of our best practices and how we handle an enterprise agreement renewal. So we'll be going through a lot of things, and you will see some of the phases of our approach, not in full detail, but to give you a very good idea on what it is that we do and how we do this. First of all, again, as always, if you haven't already, try and follow us on LinkedIn and follow us on YouTube. All our content is made available through our YouTube channel. And on LinkedIn, we will always be sharing our latest and greatest updates in the wondrous world of Microsoft licensing. So do be sure to check that out. Now, what we'll be covering today. First, we always start with an introduction on why we're doing this presentation. Then we will show our phased approach, where we will discuss multiple topics, effective licensing position and how to set it, the importance of a legal review, how to optimize your estate and look for optimizations, and how to capture and work with any future requirements that you might have. We will end this with Eric showing us the final phase of the EA renewal process, which is obviously negotiating your enterprise agreement with Microsoft, and we will show some conclusions in the end. Now, after you follow this presentation, we hope you have a good idea how to approach your enterprise agreement renewal. It's basically a presentation for anyone in IT or procurement, anyone that touches Microsoft, does something with Microsoft, and has conversations with Microsoft and its partners. Based on your company size and organization, you will most likely have a large Microsoft estate. Microsoft is omnipresent in almost any company in the world. There are hardly any companies that don't use Microsoft. And with this comes the entire complexity of the Microsoft portfolio. So you will need to balance purchasing what you need versus what Microsoft wants you to buy. Microsoft has its own agenda. As you might know, they will always push what they want you to buy, and it's important to find ways to keep in line anything and everything that you buy and only buy what you need. What you'll find throughout this presentation is that preparation is key, and we will repeat that many, many times. Starting early and doing the right things are essential. And your negotiation will only be successful if you know what you need to negotiate. You can only start your negotiation with Microsoft when you know where you want to go and what you are actually using from Microsoft. On top of this, again, dictating the conversation with Microsoft in your negotiation is key. We will show you how to do this, how to make sure that they are going to listen to you and not promote their own agenda. We will cover all aspects of Microsoft licensing on your estate in case you are faced with complex predicaments. And based on our findings in our approach, we see that you can benefit up to 30% by following our process and the negotiation that we do with Microsoft. This is focused on the enterprise agreement. It might go out of date in the coming years. Who knows what will happen with the up-and-coming Microsoft customer agreement. But for this presentation, we will be focusing on the enterprise agreement. And we will be answering questions like, what is it that you need from a baseline technical perspective? And consider your negotiation. Is there a walk-away position? Is there a best alternative to no agreement or BATNA? So what will you do in case you can't get from Microsoft what you actually need? For example, if Microsoft is proposing you buy M365 E5, but you know for a fact that you're not using more than E3, and for some users an F3 or an E1 or whatever it is that you need, how will you make sure that you can buy only what you need and don't get stuck in the discussion with Microsoft on buying what they think you might need? Important to understand, for this presentation, knowledge of Microsoft licensing is required. We will not cover the enterprise agreement program in detail. We have different content on our YouTube channel for that. So if you are looking for something to learn about the enterprise agreement, do check out our YouTube page. Every situation, again, is different. We always say this. Your organization is probably one of a kind. It discusses general concepts, but it might not always fit your environment that you're in. And make sure that you understand your options correctly before discussing with Microsoft. To reiterate, preparing yourself is key. If you struggle to receive discounts, like I said before, consider optimizing your environment. We will give you some pointers around this in the coming slides as well, as there are many options to license your estate. And finally, obviously, we have hand-on experience in Microsoft, how Microsoft handles this, as we've been Microsoft former negotiators. We have negotiated these contracts on the side of Microsoft, many of them even. As such, we do always recommend that you find a company like ourselves to help you through this difficult matter. And obviously, we'd hope you choose us to help you in doing so. Now, our phased approach, or as I'd like to call it, the steps to get from A to Z. A being, I don't know what I'm doing, and Z being, here we have an optimal contract suiting and fitting the needs of my organization. You might have seen this slide from us before. It's a quick overview on how we handle the EA renewal process, or how we see it. It's very complex. A lot of items might pop up and come into play. But it's important to grab all the aspects of it, focus it together into a bill of material, from that point create your cost models. So how do you do this? Start with a kickoff, and in the kickoff we discuss who are the escalation paths, who is the core team, who will discuss with Microsoft, who will do the negotiation. You need to set these things ahead of time before you go into the most important aspect of the initial phase, which is data gathering or data collection. Get all the data that you have around Microsoft and make sure that you can use this data to figure out how to shape your bill of material. With this comes a license entitlement analysis. What do I currently have in my estate? What am I using in my estate? What have I bought? You will need to investigate actual usage. If you, for instance, use the Microsoft Cloud or Microsoft 365, it's important to make sure that you know if you are still optimally licensed for what you are using. So check your bought licenses versus your assigned entitlements. Check if you have any unused entitlements, and optimize based on that. We will touch more on that later. Discuss the roadmap that your organization has. What is on the horizon in the coming 6 months to a year? What's on the horizon after that? Does that have impact on what we need to buy right now? And if so, how? That will create an effective licensing position. So it will tell you what you've bought, what you're using, and what you intend to use towards the future. From this, you will be able to create your bill of material. You have your existing installs and you have your future requirements ready. Use this to create multiple scenarios or cost models for yourself. What is the best case for us? What will we do if Microsoft doesn't give this to us? So what is the bare minimum that we actually need if we don't get any discounts to make it interesting for us? And what do we think that Microsoft is going to come with? And how, when they present such a scenario, how will it make sense for us to buy this? Is there a situation where we will buy M365 E5 with Power Apps, Dynamics, and the whole shebang against the set discount? We are usually certain that there isn't, but there might be discount levels that they're willing to grant. Tied to this, do a thorough legal review. We will touch on this in the coming slides as well. Now, when you have all this ready, so you have your requirements ready, you have your cost models, you have your legal review, you can go into the final stage, which is the negotiation. You're prepared, you know your escalation paths within your own organization, everybody's on the same page, you know how to escalate in case Microsoft doesn't help you in the way that you want to be serviced. And you're ready to go into the negotiation. So more on that later from Eric. What we always all do as well is benchmark any proposals that are granted. We have seen hundreds of enterprise agreement renewals over time. We know what the current standards are. We compare any proposals to this, and we review the final agreements. And when you have reviewed the final agreements and captured everything that you have discussed with Microsoft, then obviously, as we always hope, there is one happy Microsoft customer. Now, again, our phased approach. What does this look like then? So I'm not going to give away all our secrets, but these phases are basically what you need to go through. So phase 1, after you have done the kickoff, evaluate your expiring contracts, check your current pricing, benchmark your expiring contract against market standards. Do we feel that the contract that we have and that is expiring, that it's still good? Will we still be able to get the same discounts that we had 3 years ago? Why not? What has changed? That's setting the scene. Phase 2, the deep dive, takes most of the time. Here, you check your usage and consumption of cloud services. You review the on-premise environment, basically your server backend for many companies that are already in the cloud. But also for companies that aren't in the cloud, you obviously want to know what's on your workstations and what you are using Microsoft software-wise. And you will check for future requirements. What's going to happen in the short term, what's going to happen in the long term. From this, you create an effective license position. Your effective license position is what you minimally will need from Microsoft in order to maintain compliance. From that, you can create your bill of material. This will be the basis for your cost modeling scenarios, and you will have to do a thorough legal review to see if the Microsoft legal standard is aligned with your organization or if there's anything that needs to be changed. The legal review is very important, so I don't want to underline it here, but highlight it actually, because it will form the base of your negotiation as well. Nothing is too small to negotiate, so always make sure that you are able to negotiate any points that you might think you need to change in the Microsoft legal T's and C's. Phase 3 is obviously the negotiation. Set up the negotiation strategy based on what you think you might need, what you think Microsoft will do, how you will counter what Microsoft will offer. And then after the negotiation has been done, you can work on finalizing the contract, review the terms and conditions, and if all the incentives that Microsoft has granted you are included in the contract. And again, happy customer. These phases we will cover in the coming slides and in further detail, and we hope this is very beneficial for your future EA renewals. So the importance of setting timelines. We always start our kickoff presentation with our clients with a slide like this. So we basically put in detail when we feel that a certain phase needs to be touched. So like I said in the previous slide, phase 1 is show you again, is setting the scene. So you will want to set the scene and create an overview of your current existing contract that is expiring, and you will set a date towards when you will take the necessary steps. The same for the deep dive, and we will always chop it up in different phases, where we'll say the first phase we will do in that date and time. and it will take that amount of weeks. And the same for the other phases. So phase 2A might be the review of your Microsoft 365 environment. Phase 2B might be a legal review. Phase 2C might be server estate analysis or optimization, and so on. Those phases will be set, and it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 to 8 to 10, depending on the organization and what we need to work through in order to get the full scope of that estate that you are running. The same for the negotiation. It might take a long period of time. It might be very time sensitive and caught in a big crunch. So it's important to see where you want to be at when your contract has expired, or around when your contract has expired, and work your way back to the beginning of the project to see how much time you have. After setting those steps to take, you will lock it in a project plan, assign owners to it to see who is responsible for that piece. And in high level, you want to make sure that Microsoft has seen the timelines that you're working with and that they agree to this as well. Why is that key? It helps you to dictate the discussion. No, we're not going to talk about this because we are still in this phase. No, we're not going to be doing that because we are not at that phase yet. And they can plot their timelines against yours instead of you plotting your timelines against theirs. Why is that beneficial? You get to dictate the discussion. So phase 1, setting the scene. In setting the scene, we do an expiring contract review. So we will review the current contract structure and see if it still fits the organization. So basically, the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement contract is set up of all kinds of different levels. You have the master agreement level, the enterprise agreement level. You have all kinds of enrollments that you can place under this. And under your enrollments, you might even have different tenant enrollments. We will check it if it still fits the organizational need. Is there still a need to have an enterprise enrollment with a potential subscription enrollment or an SCE? Are all tenants still necessary? Will there be changes toward this? Then we review any and all amendments on the contract and ask, is this an amendment that we need? Is this an amendment that is important to Microsoft? Do we need to continue this? Why should we continue this? What is the reasoning to get Microsoft to help us to continue this? You will have to request a new contract docs from Microsoft or your licensing solution partner, and to see if the new MBSA might hold more beneficial clauses to what you already signed, or the enterprise agreement level. Is it the new version better than the one that we already have? What has changed in the product terms? And more importantly, the online services terms part of the product terms. Microsoft has a big data processing agreement. So if you're using Microsoft Cloud, it can be very time sensitive to go through this, because it's a big piece of the legal T's and C's, and Microsoft makes changes to this quite often and quite largely. So make sure to check the data processing agreement and the online services terms of the product terms. Now, when you're doing this, no item is too small. So make sure you write down all items that are important to you. And it doesn't have to be in a listed order from A to Z. This is my most important, this is my least important. The reason you want to do this is because anything and everything can be negotiated with Microsoft. And if they don't want to accept something, you can potentially use it to your benefit to trade it out for additional things that might be of importance to you in a higher sense than something that they don't want to grant you. Then we will do a historical pricing analysis. So what is this? We create an overview of all the purchases over the past contract term. What did your contract start with? This is to refresh. So we will check, okay, this is the starting line 3 years ago. What changes happened over the past year? So what did you do in your true-ups? Did you buy additional cloud services? How did your contract evolve? This is to get up to date. So you will have year 1, year 2, year 3, or even more years if you have a longer term contract. and what will change in the coming months up until the renewal. So we will also check a little bit towards the future, because when we start this approach, usually it's around 6 to 12 months in advance of your contract expiration. So there might be things that might need to happen in the 6 months up to that point in time. After you know all the quantities that you have, we will calculate the cost. You will get an historical spend analysis. So it will show you year 1 you spent X, year 2 you spent Y, and year 3 you will have spent Z. This will be the baseline scenario that you would want to benchmark your future scenarios against. So price indexation might have happened. So you want to make sure that what you've spent over the past 3 years, and specifically in the final year of your contract, and ask yourself the following questions. Are my discounts still in line with the market? Do a benchmark if you don't know this. Have organizations like your LSP, like ours, do this benchmark for you. Is what I'm buying of interest to Microsoft? So do I still need the same that I needed last year or 3 years ago? If so, is that important to Microsoft? Will they be able to negotiate a contract with me, or will they tell me, well, based on this configuration, 0% is what you're getting? And how will Microsoft react if I'm going to contract this again? So what will they counter with? The historical pricing analysis will typically help you answer these questions, and this is very important to do, because this will set your baseline for your future discussions with Microsoft. You can always look back at it, see if what they're proposing for the new contract is way out of line compared to your average spend over the past 3 years or not, even if a lot of things change in your configuration and your Microsoft estate. So going into the deep dive, or phase 2, so not to show that the phase 1 is just a tiny little fragment, but it's quite a beefy exercise to do. But most of the work internally in your organization will be in phase 2. So here we will start to look at actually optimizing your Microsoft estate. So you've done the groundwork, you have the historical overview of your contract, you know what clauses are present, you have done an initial legal review to see what you might need of a new contract. So the next step is checking if everything that you have bought is still in line with the need of your organization. So what am I actively using from the purchased Microsoft Cloud services? And how am I consuming Microsoft Azure? And are there ways that I can optimize this? And for any and all software that I'm still using, for my on-premises server needs, for my devices that still use Windows operating system, does this still align with my purchase licenses? These questions need to be answered to know what you will have in your effective licensing position in the end. Next to that, you want to look towards the future, as stated before. What are we going to use of the Microsoft portfolio in the coming year? What in the coming 3 years? And why is this important? This is important because you want to know how your configuration for your enterprise agreement might change in the coming years. So it might make sense to start now again with the same that you had last year. I will renew Microsoft 365 E3 because that's what I'm using. But if you know that you're going to be using parts of the Microsoft 365 E5 security suite in the coming 6 to 12 months, then you might already want to make a little commitment based on this, or at least price lock that item in your coming contract so that you can roll out as you want to roll out and not get stuck in another discussion with Microsoft 6 months down the line, asking them for a discount on E5 security if you already knew that you were going to use this. So looking towards the future is important, and creating timelines for these projects will be of massive importance because it will show you the best and optimal way to license this. And we will be talking a little bit more about that in a few slides. On reviewing your cloud services usage, These are some slides that we have already shown in earlier sessions, but it's still valid, it's still relevant, and we still do this on a day-to-day basis. So if you review, for instance, Microsoft 365, we look for optimization areas that include inactive users, so people showing no activity in the Microsoft 365 data from your portal. This means that they have not used ever or in a long period of time the Microsoft 365 services that have been assigned to them. So the question is, why do these users have a license? Are they on long-term leave? Are they even no longer present in the company? Can you optimize these? Inactivity on Microsoft 365 applications. So am I assigning E3 or E5 licenses to people that might need a lower type of license if they're not using Office 365 Pro Plus or M365 apps for enterprise, I should say? You might have the potential there to move them to another license type, a lower license type, a cheaper license type. There are so many organizations that give a one-size-fits-all license to everyone and anyone that you should ideally look into profiling your users. And users assigned licenses without the need for it. So the potential right size to different license type. What I mean here is we often see organizations, for instance, having a Power BI license next to an M365 E5 license. Within M365 E5, you already get a Power BI Pro license. So why would you still assign a single Power BI Pro license again? And we see a lot of these combinations that might not make sense. So we always look for these optimizations. Underutilization of the product list. This is the most easy to find optimization. If you buy 8,000 E3 license, but you're using 7,500, you're putting 500 on the shelf. And for what reason? Do you think you're going to grow exponentially day over day into those 8,000 users? No, it might make sense to keep a little buffer, but it might not make sense to keep that big a buffer. And we see that quite a lot. Also with contracts that have been negotiated with Microsoft, for instance, Microsoft adds Power Apps to all their current deals. You might not want Power Apps, but you might have bought it to get a better discount on other items. In your second and third year, you could have reduced those items to zero. Many companies often forget this, and they will get stuck with the bill year over year, where you can easily have saved tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you're interested in knowing more, we are planning a deep dive on all these optimizations in 2022. And if you need help on this, we love to help you out, obviously. So going into a few examples here, and I will not go over them in much detail, but I just wanted to show a little bit around how to do this. So reviewing the product list. On the right-hand side, you see the Microsoft 365 portal export. What we just do is add a row delta. So we show if you buy 4,164 licenses of Azure Active Directory Premium P2, you assigned 3,900 licenses, you have a delta of 243. So for your new contract, it might make more sense to look at the number 3,921 instead of 4,164. It might make sense to do that for everything. It might also not make sense. So for instance, some items are basically a tenant-wide license. So we look towards the items for optimization that might make sense. Others might still need the license entitlement and should not be updated. But to know more around this, look for tenant-wide licensing online on Google for Microsoft, and you will find a page that explains which security features should have a tenant-wide availability. Large deltas will mean big savings opportunities. Can't stress this enough. Obviously, you will see things like these Power Virtual Agents, 10,000 and 2 assigned. Well, those are typically free licenses that Microsoft distributes. So if you don't assign any, obviously that might just be overlooked. So challenge your organization on this and set governance. We often see organizations struggling with this and don't have the right type of governance set up to make sense of this and to actually action this within the organization. Every year on your anniversary, at least do a download of your M365 portal and all the license that you've bought, and try and see if you can optimize this. Reviewing cloud services in more detail. The below picture shows an export from the activity logs from the Microsoft 365 portal. It shows any Office 365 active user details. So you see if certain licenses have been assigned. You see the type of license that has been assigned on the right, and you see the activity dates. So if there's no date included, that person has not been using any of the services ever. It's not been activated. It might have different reasons why this is not the case. It could, for instance, be that these licenses have been assigned to cover for on-premise use, but these are things that you want to look at. The same with activity that's over 90 days old. Why hasn't someone logged into their email account over 90 days? What's been the reason for that? Long-term leave. Is this person even still present in the company? If you know these things based on the data that you see, then you can redistribute those licenses, or in the case that you don't have anyone to redistribute them to, just remove them from your environment entirely. In an enterprise agreement, obviously, you can only do this once a year. So we always say that you should start this process 3 months in advance of your enterprise agreement anniversary date. Profiling. What we call profiling is the ability to understand your employees' needs and map this to the possibilities of Microsoft licensing across the board. So not only on cloud services, but on anything that Microsoft does. However, with cloud services, there is just a lot of options to license for what you actually need. And why is this so important? Make sure you understand what different license types you need to satisfy the minimum requirements. It helps create an understanding of how far along you are in utilizing Microsoft suites of suites. It creates a better understanding of your needs, and it shows you gaps within what you are buying versus using. It will serve as the basis for your negotiation strategy, because having this knowledge, knowing what you need, knowing what you are using, knowing what you need to buy. It might make sense to buy more, but you are equipped with knowledge on what you need as a bare minimum. And as such, you can easily tell them, okay, you want to sell me E5, that's fine. I have these users using this functionality, I have these users using that functionality, and I have some users that might make or take benefit from the entire E5 platform. But if you want to sell E5 across the board, that's fine. I'm going to need this price point. I have done my research. This is super important and key to anyone that is already deployed in the cloud and looking to renew their contracts. So if we switch to Microsoft Azure and look at Microsoft Cloud consumption, always in your enterprise agreement, do a deep dive into your Azure consumption. It will become object of discussion with Microsoft. Why? They always want to sell you a Microsoft Azure consumption commitment, meaning you will commit to a certain amount of money that you will consume over the coming 3-year term. No upfront payments. Microsoft doesn't generally do that anymore unless it's very interesting to them. But just a paper commitment. You say you spend 5 million in based on that, we will give you certain amounts of incentives. Why do you want to investigate your cloud consumption? Microsoft will show their ambitious growth plan to you, and that usually has exponential growth. It usually looks something like, over the past month, you've grown 6% month over month on an average. So if we extrapolate that towards the coming 36 months, that means you're going to spend X, Y, and Z. And we have investigated all these different projects that might onboard to the Azure platform as well. So that will make the total an X amount of million. You will want to have done your own research here, because it's very great to have resources from Microsoft to help identify your cloud consumption and projects that you might want to bring to the Azure cloud. But you want to also do your own homework and make sure that you counter with your own knowledge. So create a strong consumption plan for your organization. So don't go into the flow of, oh yeah, we might grow exponentially month over month with this amount of percentage, but say that will probably remain steady because what we do now is the bare minimum, and that's not going to change. Show any projects that might be of interest to bring to the Microsoft Cloud, but never say, oh, this will go to Azure. It might go to Azure. Always consider your multi-cloud strategy. Look towards optimizations. Are you already using reserved instance or Azure Hybrid Benefit? Are you turning off dev test environments throughout the night instead of having these spun up for 24/7? Can I right size to newer versions of my VMs that I'm using? How is my storage that I'm currently using, etc., etc.? Show that decline as well. We have investigated optimization potential in the form of why, and create a compelling event. And most importantly, bring it to the table at the right time. Later is better. Keep Microsoft in thinking that they will probably get a large Azure commitment from you, and in the end, you can trade it out for something else. Then a little bit about your on-prem analysis. And what we typically see is that a lot of our clients are currently already deployed in the Microsoft Cloud for their modern workplace. And what is left is usually the server environment. So a server and state analysis is always part of what we're looking at. You want to do this thoroughly. So you want to do a thorough SAM engagement to know what you're using on-prem and if this still aligns with what you are buying. The most money is often in the server backend. So SQL and Windows Server Data Center will typically be the large cost factors here. And we can approximately mostly find 50% of savings by reimagining your current licensing. So looking at licensing virtual versus physical for SQL, for instance, applying Windows Server Standard instead of Windows Server Data Center based on certain break-even points, that will help immensely. These things can be easily found online. So if you're not aware of where these break-even points are, do and find them and look them up. Otherwise, drop us a note. We'll happily help you along your way. And Microsoft is still very focused on SQL Server. SQL Server Enterprise is always a scorecard item for Microsoft. Make sure you investigate your options in this area. See if you can create a compelling event for your negotiation with Microsoft. I'm not saying you need to buy a more SQL Enterprise. I'm just saying if you can reduce that, it might make a difference in your coming negotiation with Microsoft. And looking at on-prem, if you're still licensing Project and Visio device-based on-premises, these are typically not that important to Microsoft. But they want to flip them to the subscription model. And you should ask yourself, do I need this? Usually, in our opinion, the answer is no. You do not even need software assurance on Project and Visio. You do not need to benefit from the From SA licenses that they have for Project and Visio subscriptions. So what we always recommend is take Project and Visio out of software assurance. Don't renew this at all and step into the cloud subscription model whenever your timing is right. Okay, so after going through these motions, you should have a great idea about your Microsoft estate. It should be not a one-time thing. So this definitely should be a continuous process. It is still very apparent to us that there is a large disconnect in organizations of what is bought versus what is used. It's mainly got to do with communication, the teams not talking to each other, the improper implementation of SAM tooling, the heavy reliance on SAM tooling instead of common sense. because what SAM tooling doesn't do for you is tell you what the licensing rules are. So when you have all that investigated and you want to look at the final step, that is completing the roadmap for the coming years, questions to ask are, what programs are running within my organization that might require new, other, or additional Microsoft licenses? When are these programs going to be effectuated? What does the rollout scheme look like? What does this mean for the current licensing configuration that we have and we have envisioned for the future? And can you profile any and all users differently based on these new requirements? You will have to create an overview of this future roadmap to identify gaps and options. And how you typically do this is a little example that we might use for somebody that is interested in moving to certain aspects of the Microsoft 365 E5 security suite. We will just look at what is there currently. So there's 4,000 licenses for E3. There's an immediate interest for Microsoft Cloud App Security, or Defender for Cloud Apps, as it's called now. There's an immediate need for Defender for Plan 1, and there's an upcoming need for Defender for Identity, and potentially towards the future, Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2. So what we will then do is create a model showing the pricing if you were to step into this piece by piece, and if it might make sense to buy the entire suite. Obviously, this is a very limited view. The entire list of Microsoft Cloud services that you might be willing to adopt is much, much longer, and you want to do this for all of these services. And especially plot these in time, because that will give you an idea of when you are going to use what service. And then if you put a price next to it, you know what your total cost might be if you don't have any discounts from Microsoft, but just will gradually roll into them on your own pace. Use that to your benefit. That is knowledge that you might use in order to see what an interesting price point might be for Microsoft 365 E5. The initial analysis, again, preparation is key, so it should start 12 plus months in advance. That means the phase 1, you want to already investigate your historical pricing analysis. You want to do a thorough deep dive on your legal T's and C's, etc. Take your time. I don't mean to say that you should fix it in 30 days and then have 11 months of doing nothing. But this is when Microsoft will start to think about your renewal as well. The in-depth analysis, phase 2, take 6 to 12 months in advance. So take your time as well. Thoroughly investigate what you need. It's very time intensive. It won't cost you 40 hours a week. Definitely not. But there's a lot of things that you're going to run into that you want to take the time to iron out. Then use the last 6 months to iron out the details, dot the I's and cross the T's. What do we not know? What do we still need to take care of? And then in the last 3 to 6 months, you want to do that negotiation with Microsoft. The last 3 months will be mainly focused on discussing with Microsoft, and you will want to set yourself up for success in your negotiation. It can be slimmed down. We don't recommend it. We sometimes do this entire process in a few months. We've just been doing a case like this, and we hope to be finalizing it soon. But when you take your time, you see that you will generally be better prepared.
Yeah.
Shortening this time frame will hurt yourself. And finally, we will now go into phase 3, the negotiation aspect. So I'll hand over to Eric for that.
Thanks, Floris. Yeah, and indeed, a lot of clients are well prepared, but we do see a lot of clients that are starting off with their negotiation a little too late. So that's something we really recommend doing. Be well prepared and start early. So in the next slides, we're going to discuss phase 3, the negotiations. Personally, it's my favorite phase. And it all starts off with, what does Microsoft wants to sell you? Well, in one word, cloud only. It used to be different in the world where cloud was not adopted by the whole world. But since the pandemic, Microsoft is only interested in selling off cloud. and especially in their strategic products. So Microsoft 365 in the region where we are active in Western Europe is a commodity. And the most strategic important products for Microsoft are Dynamics 365, the Microsoft Power Platform, and Microsoft Azure. And even that is becoming more and more mainstream. So we see the market changing there. So Microsoft tends to have a discussion with your internal organization. So not only the people that are involved in doing the negotiation, but also with your CIO, with your CTO, and all kinds of C-level engaged colleagues of your within your organization. So Microsoft is not generally talking about licenses that will become available in the final stage, but they would like to talk about their business solutions at first. We're gonna explore that a little more in the next coming slides, but please be aware that Microsoft will try not having the conversation with you alone as someone from procurement, as someone from software asset management. Also, the C-level is involved in the whole process. Generally, Microsoft always starts with their hero offering. And that's, for Microsoft, the M365 E5 suite, combined with Power Apps, combined with Dynamics, and a large amount of Azure combined with it. It's really their inside-out proposition there. So they always are dropping it. They are never coming with a discount in the first proposal. And it's always, it's just a financially based proposal. They're trying to sell off the value at first, but then when you start having to start your conversation with them, it will turn out differently. Clients are advised by us to pushing back on their hero offering. We always say, keep it realistic. We only want to buy what we are using, and it's good to have ambition towards the future, but please be aware that we as an organization only want to buy what we need at this time, and we would like to make we'd like to have a negotiation about what to buy in the future, but we do not want to buy everything at day one. Generally, we see that a lot of clients are buying off M365 E5 at the moment. Also, we think because of the pandemic. But generally speaking, the M365 E5 suite does not it cannot be implemented within a year. It really takes time. And we've seen a lot of clients that are willing to implement the technology, but you cannot implement it in 12 months. It takes like 2.5 years to fully implement the M365 E5 suite. So clients should be aware of that when they are negotiating their EA renewal. So yeah, initially push back. If you are interested in the M365 E5 suite, if you are interested in buying Dynamics, have a discussion with them, but always keep your head around what you are actually using. So, and again, emphasizing they will involve not only your C-level, but also the technology partners. So if you have a technology partner that is focused on Microsoft, yeah, more or less you are talking with Microsoft. So you should be aware of that. They're biased. They're not giving you a full transparent story. Often also from the Microsoft partners, they are being pushed to sell M360 E5 because that has a higher a rebate for them. So yeah, be aware of that. So how should you counter all of those objectives? Have your own list of requirements ready. And Floris already said it. We're going to repeat it many times, but preparation is key. So be prepared. Do not get caught up in their approach, and try to dictate and lead the negotiation in your discussion. And in order to do that, you should also have your escalation spot internally and externally set in stone. So there is no mystery how to escalate in a such situation where you are in a conflict with Microsoft. And therefore, it's always good to have a single point of contact that is being determined also and supported by your C-level. So it's very clear, crisp and clear for you and for Microsoft who is leading the negotiation. So in order to do a proper negotiation, we feel you really should know how the Microsoft organization works. And this part of the presentation is applicable to the Western Europe organization for Microsoft, but it can also apply for Asia Pacific, for Australia, the US, same applies. So when Flores and I were doing the LSS role, now known as the commercial lead role, we were not the single point of contact within the organization. So now Microsoft has changed that. They're trying to put the commercial executive into the lead of the organization, and the commercial executive is the single point of contact for the negotiation at first. Really try to emphasize it first because we feel that you have a very good first talking point within Microsoft if you are dealing with the commercial executive, but you really should have your conversation with the rest of the Microsoft internal organization as well, because everyone has different interests, different targets. So it's very good to know which individual has which target and to use that into your benefit. So for instance, if you are using Azure a lot, then you probably will have a good relationship with your Azure solution specialist. But if Microsoft is pushing you for Dynamics and you are willing to invest in your Dynamics licensing estate, probably there will be a different benefit to that individual. So by knowing who does what within the Microsoft organization, you will be able to adjust your negotiation with Microsoft. Again, these are all individuals supported by the account team. When you are really a large organization, you want to have a big discount. Investing in strategic products, it's also good to have that management engagement within Microsoft. Managers do tend to have different interests. They are more interested in you as a client. Generally speaking, they don't have a technology budget for Azure, do not have it for modern workplace. They're just interested in your benefit and the money in total, to be fully transparent on that. It also depends how large you are as a client, to be honest. So if you are having 1,000 seats, you will have some negotiation possibilities within Microsoft. We do expect a change in that the coming years. We think that up till 2,400 users will be serviced by the partners in the future and not by Microsoft directly. So that will change in the coming years. So it's good to be informed about that. And we think in the coming year there will be some changes with the direct and indirect approach there. So this slide is all about how Microsoft operate. So as discussed, the first line of contact is your account manager and your commercial executive. You will have the basic discussions with them. And then when you are moving up the corporate ladder, you have the local middle management. That depends, if you want to escalate, if it's applicable to you. Sometimes you can do it with your commercial executive and your account manager. But we always recommend, if you really want the most out of your negotiations, you should move up that corporate ladder. And it really depends on who has the pain. So for instance, are you having an account manager that already has hit his target? They will probably not be the most flexible negotiator. But if they have quite a gap in their target and they're willing to provide you the concessions and discounts you need, you will tend to have a better discount in the end. Moving up the ladder, the local higher management, then you are discussing with your enterprise operating unit lead. In the end, when you're moving up and up and up, you will come to the business desk. Business desk has been renamed. It's now been known as the deal desk. And that's the only department within Microsoft that doesn't have a financial target. They don't have any revenue targets, and they're purely looking at it from a Microsoft business perspective. So they're looking, if we are giving this discount or this concession, is this good for Microsoft? And what will be the long-term effect of it? while the sales is only living in the here and now and determining if they can achieve their targets or not. The business desk is more of a high level aspect on it. So depending on how high the discount is and how much impact the concession has, if Microsoft is giving that, you will go to the business desk. The business desk is not talking with clients in general. We do see exceptions abroad, but generally speaking, the business desk, deal desk is an internal mechanism for Microsoft. And they often hide between the business desk. So it's very easy for them to explain how business desk works. And then they will say, well, no, sorry, we cannot, no, the business desk will not allow that. So if you are ever hearing that, please do challenge us to check whether that's true or not. We are most likely to tell you the real truth about that. Moving on. Yeah, what are you able to negotiate? In general, we often see that everyone is interested in discount, but we really feel there will be a change coming up because as Microsoft is becoming more and more market leader and a commodity, you need to look at other things than just discount. Flexibility, price locks, optimization, as Floris discussed, very important because if you only buy what you need versus buying everything with a high discount, in the end, buying what you need without any or very little discount will be cheaper in the end of the day. So zooming in on what's possible within discounts, it really depends on your level of deployment in the cloud. So if you are a client that's based in Europe, let's say in the Netherlands, in this case, and you are enjoying a 15% discount on your M365E3 suite, that's an average discount. That's not too high. But if you're using all of your functionality out of that E3 suite, Microsoft most likely will push you towards the E5 suite. But yeah, if you do not have a requirement to move to that E5 suite and want to stay on the E3 suite, knowing that you are using all of the functionality from that suite, please be informed that you will not get your 15% discount again in the next renewal. So Microsoft will decrease the discount in the next EA renewal. So that's why the level of deployment is very important in most cases. We see a lot of clients that are having too much confidence in getting the same discounts as they have, but Microsoft is really pushing that back. So know that. It really depends on the market. So as discussed, the Western Europe market and the Dutch market is very saturated when it comes to cloud. If you are active, for instance, in Germany, where the level of cloud adoption is not as high as in the Netherlands, we see different possibilities there. Also be informed that flexibility is very important nowadays. Microsoft is always pushing with high discounts and going back to the company-wide obligations again. So when we had the old enterprise agreements in place with the enterprise desktop and the professional desktop, there was a company-wide commitment applicable for everyone. Microsoft changed that, and it was actually a very good step of Microsoft to move to subscription-based modeling where you can yearly up and down scale your requirements. But now Microsoft is pushing them back again to the company-wide model. So they're providing sometimes a higher discount if you are willing to commit to buy the subscription for all of your users, not allowing you to profile or have very limited profiling possibilities. This is currently a very hot topic. Be aware of that. Do not let yourself get into that trick because it will cost you a lot of money when you fall for that one. And price lock. Microsoft is announcing a lot of price increases recently. So the first will be executed by the first quarter of next calendar year. So we always recommend, if you are anticipating on using certain technology of Microsoft, do include them on the CPS because it will be locked, and then you will benefit from having that price locked and not having an increase coming up in March or April. So be well prepared. And this slide, very important to use in your advantage during the negotiation. besides discount and flexibility, there is a whole list you can negotiate with Microsoft, and it's not always too important that you actually have a very large list, but it does help you to negotiate further with Microsoft, because the longer you negotiate and the more you work towards your deadline, the more is possible. So you should always have your list of requirements ready, even though if you find them not realistic, do let them know. Start the negotiation at the highest level. You can only start the negotiation on top of your flat building once. So if you think, well, let's be gentle to Microsoft and let's start halfway, you can only start with the highest discount once. So always be prepared to have your list ready. Microsoft will not know what's important for you. So in the end, it's very hard for them to determine if discount is very important to you, if flexibility is very important to you. So you should have that list ready. Microsoft is also, they're very confident in their approach, but they're always, in the end, it's always a puzzle. And nothing is set in stone. Precedent working, we see that a lot. So Microsoft know that a lot of clients and advisory companies are talking with each other. So we see a lot of caution when it comes to providing high discounts. So you should be aware of that high discounts are more and more challenging towards the future, and that's all because of precedent working. That's it for this slide. So we're going to move on to the next one. Timeline and profiles. Floor's already discussed the timelines we discussed. So it's very important to have your planning ready for you internally and as well to Microsoft. Why? Because if 9 out of 10 times Microsoft fails to deliver and respect your timelines, and that's not because the sales team does not want to respect that, but it's often because Microsoft is a very internal, complex organization, and they are not able to meet your requirements. So if they fail to deliver, you should always use that against them. So it's always good to document everything. Also, all the agreements that have been made during the negotiation, document them. Is it in an email or for yourself? Always document everything and lay back to that. Considering the time, we're going to move on to the next slide. Also about timelines. Again, emphasizing communicating the list of requirements early. Let them have it the way you want to. Lead the negotiation. Let them stick to your timelines. And if they fail to deliver, let them know. So we're going to move towards the conclusion of this session. Flora started with it, and I'm going to end with it. Preparation. Preparation is key, and please do follow our steps towards successful renewal. Start early, because if you do that, you will be having a better enterprise agreement renewal. If you use our proven methodology, the end result will be very good for you as a client, and it will be an agreement that will be fit your organization's requirements. Having said that, always look towards optimization. That's not something you should do only at your enterprise agreement renewal date, but it should be a continuous process towards the coming 3 years. By doing that, it will make sure that you will not be overpaying for your Microsoft subscriptions and doing the right thing. So item 3, moving towards the cloud. It's better to understand the licenses you are buying. So we see a lot of clients buying suites, but it does make it worthwhile to further optimize. Look towards lower licensing types. Remove licenses that are not used. And it can be quite a hassle to do that, but we're also here to help, so we have our solutions for that as well. And yeah, emphasizing again, make this a continuous process towards the future. Do not do this once, and if you do it continuously, it will help you towards the next enterprise agreement renewal. Well, it will make it a standard process within your organization. Do not skip over the on-prem environment. There's a lot of money involved in your on-prem licenses, and although Microsoft is not very interested at it at first, it does represent a quite monetary value for them. So please do assess your SQL and Windows Server environment and take a look how you can potentially benefit from that as well. Deploying in Azure using hybrid benefits, all that kind of stuff should be included in your on-prem assessment. Timelines and profiles. Yeah, negotiation is all about buying what you need, we feel. So not only focus on discount, but also on the profiles and the different license type that Microsoft offers. If you're applying the right license type to the right user, it can save you a lot of money, not even needing a high discount to reduce your annual costs to Microsoft. And yeah, item 7, negotiate on all. It's not only discount, it can also be flexibility. It can also be legal terms. It can, no item is too small or too big to name and use in your advantage. Last item, very important for you and your internal organization. Do capture everything in emails, in a project document, not only for now and in the here and now, but also yeah, I'm back again. I had issue with my phone. Sorry, microphone. Sorry for that. And last but not least, capture everything you do in an internal document, because not only you will be doing your enterprise agreement, but also your colleagues. And it's very good to have an internal document where you can communicate it all in. And also when you are heading up for the next enterprise agreement renewal, you can read it back again. What happened and what we did at the time and how did it went. But the chances are that you will be having a new Microsoft account team in 3 years. And you will be doing the enterprise agreement renewal, and you need to reflect on, what did happen? So capture everything you do. It will be very, very helpful. We've seen cases where clients did the documentation, and we were able to retrieve what happened 4 years ago. That's very useful information. So do that. That's the end of our presentation today. So again, thank you for taking the time to look at this presentation. We do appreciate that. Do follow us online. Please follow our company page on LinkedIn. Do sign up for our newsletter. It has very non-commercial licensing information in it. And do follow us on YouTube, because we will be focusing more and more on YouTube, and also the streaming quality on YouTube is far more better. So do follow us there. Yeah, having said that's it for today. I would like to thank you all and talk with you soon next time. Thank you. Bye bye.